right, we got Cooks for Christ, another episode. We have Arturo Rojas, special guest, and Spencer is out, so miss him.
He's missing out on this one.
He's gonna miss a good one. So Arturo, tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you join the Legion?
Well, I joined in 2000, so 22 years ago. Yeah, so I was there from 2000 to 2011.
And you joined as an apostolic?
Yeah, I joined the apostolic school in Monterrey.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Was it just as crazy as being an app? Like, I mean, I assume it was. Were there as many rules as like New Hampshire had? I don't know if you're familiar with New Hampshire or our podcast at all, but we have experiences with a lot of rules and strict rules.
Yeah. I think like the rules were pretty much the same for everyone. I also spoke to some of when I was in the US from 2004 till 2010. And my experience is that we had the same amount of rules, it seems. But I think the way you approach things can be a little different. And I think culturally speaking, that's a big thing.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I feel that in America, you tend to follow more the rules and you're more law abiding. In Mexico, it's kind of like a virtue not to abide by the rules almost. So I think we had these rules in place, but not everyone wanted to follow them. And if you broke them, like, we wouldn't judge you for it. Like, I was more like I followed all the rules all the time. I don't know, just my personality. I like to follow rules. But I think in general, there were people who like speak during times of silence, or they will ask their parents to ask the superior to get some extra days at home and things like that. So we were a little, we were more restless in that sense. And something that even within Mexican culture, we have our different ways of approaching life, I guess. Northern Mexicans, we tend to be a little more rebellious. So I remember like there were like these superiors who would come from other apostolic schools, and then in other places, when someone was doing something wrong, they will just reprimand them, and kids will be like, obey and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," whatnot. But we were not like that. Like, if someone told us something, like, we will answer back and say, like, "I don't care. You have to make me. I don't want to do." Like, and then a lot of superiors will get very confused. Like, what is happening? They wouldn't know how to handle the situation, because that's how we are. Like, we just like to speak our minds out. Yeah. Like, so I think that's something that made our school quite different, even because Monterrey was like, we had the apostolics and the novices. We were sharing the same, well, let's call it the same territory if you wish, or
living space.
But we're the living. Well, the thing, like, really, it's quite big. Yeah, it's quite big. The area is quite big. So the novices had a whole 2 buildings to themselves, and we had our building. So we rarely met, or we coincided, like, not even for meals, because our schedules were different. But the few times they would see us, many of them will get scandalized by how we would interact with our superiors, because they also came from other fronts, and like other legionary fronts, and they will be like, "Why are these kids so rebellious, and they don't obey their superiors, and they say these things to them?" So yeah, I mean, we had the rules, but also I think the culture, the way you approach things was a bit different, I guess.
Okay. Now, was the apostolic school your favorite part of your experience in the Legion, or did you have a better time in the US?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. I enjoyed the apostolic school. to some extent. There were things I didn't like, to be honest, because the way they do, or at least they did, the God vocations in Mexico was that a priest will go to your school, a legionary priest, and then they will invite you to a retreat, and then they will try to get you into the legion, into the apostolic school. So when I was there, because I wanted to be a priest, I was 12. So I was like, since a young age, I don't know why I wanted to be a priest. And we were not particularly religious, to be honest. Like my brother was baptized when he was like 8. So.
Oh, that's late.
Yeah, so I had, yeah, and he got baptized because he asked my mom to be baptized. So we were the ones asking to go to church. It was weird. I don't know what was going on in our heads. But yeah, I asked my mom if I could do my first communion and so on. So I wanted to be there, but I have the feeling that a lot of them were not there because they wanted to be there. Like they were pretty much convinced to go and stay there at the apostolic school. Like my feeling was that like a lot of these kids didn't want to be there. They shouldn't have been there. So the way they also did things, kind of like I felt that they were not very I wouldn't say happy, but you could tell that they didn't want to be there 100%. So I wouldn't say the apostolic school was like the happiest place, but I had a lot of friends. I have a lot of friendships from there, like people I still keep in touch with, for sure. I had a fun time in the US. I think the novitiate was interesting, but I think humanities was a little more fun for me, because I like a lot of this, like studying and stuff. So art and history and Latin, I love that part of my life, and we got to museums and stuff. So that was pretty cool. But I think I would have had a better time in philosophy if Maciel's news hadn't happened at that point.
Okay, so that's when you were in philosophy when that came out.
Yeah.
You were in Thornwood?
In Thornwood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have that house anymore.
No, they don't. No.
It's a language. It's a language school.
Yes. English first, or EF.
Yeah.
I don't know what it stands for.
Yeah, I think it's like EFL Academy or something. I forgot what it's called. But I'm local. I live nearby. So really? I sometimes drive by and I laugh. Actually, I think I told this on the podcast. When I Ubered, I actually drove someone from that academy to the academy, and I'm like, "Oh, do you know what used to be here?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Let me tell you a story."
Well,
let me tell you this rich history of this building real quick.
So
blow your mind.
Yeah, that was a little small world moment. So you liked humanities. Was novitiate hard to transition to after being an apostolic, or was it just a culture shock anyway, being in the US?
Actually, no, the US wasn't a big culture shock because I'm from northern Mexico. So we used to go back and forth between the two countries quite often.
Okay.
Yeah, legally.
Yeah.
So for the record, everything was legal here.
Oh, don't worry. We're not. We joke about it, but we're not building any wall on this podcast.
Okay, not in the podcast, because there's a wall where I live. There is a wall. Like when people ask me, I travel, and people are like, "What do you think about Donald Trump and the wall?" And I was like, to be honest, I don't care, because there is already a wall where I live by. Like there is on the Texan side, they built a wall, and I have a picture of the wall. So so I don't know. I guess he just wanted to make it longer or bigger. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyways. Yeah, so we like traveled a lot to the US. Like most of my fun childhood memories is like in Texas, because I don't know, we used to go there and buy toys, or there was no McDonald's in Mexico, so we'll have to go there to have, so McDonald's, or
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
well, back then, yeah, when I was growing up in our town, there was no McDonald's, so we just crossed the border and had McDonald's on the other side of the border. Uh, we'll go to the beach there. Like we had like a lot of fun times. Like birthday parties will be in Texas, so it was just it was like driving like it's like 10-minute drive really, but it's usually like an hour, because the boarding crossing
The customs.
car. Yeah, it takes a while to you have like there are some traffic hours. If there's no traffic, it's pretty quick. So
Okay.
I was pretty familiar with American culture at that point. My English wasn't the best, but I could kind of like get by. But what I found a bit tough was more of the rules. Like I follow the rules, like I like following the rules, and I guess that's why they sent me to the U.S. But I felt that there people were a little more intense about following the rules, and whatever the novice instructor will tell them, they will like obey like crazy and be too intense about things. So even I sometimes will be like, oh, chill, like you don't have to, take everything too intensely.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. That
Yeah.
was. I was only a novice for a month.
So
Because because of the news and other things, I ended up leaving.
Oh wow. Who was your instructor?
Oh gosh, I think it was Father Joseph Burka.
Okay. Yeah.
So he would have been the territorial director, I think, when you were.
No,
Oh no,
it was
no.
it was Bannon. Then
Oh, that's okay.
then
So
the
yeah, you
yeah.
are old. I forgot.
Yeah, I guess. It was Bannon, like, but that was like for 6 months. Then 6 months later, there was like a legionary chapter, and they divided the territories into two. And so we had like the New York territory and the Atlanta territory. So that must have been like in January or February, or I don't recall really.
Yeah, good times. I think there's one territory now again, but
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I don't follow the news. I say that, and I'm literally involved in it. So what was your favorite experience from the Legion?
Favorite in one sense, like the more fun experience, or
yeah, I guess that's a what brought you the most joy? What moment?
the most
Or
joy? Maybe my religious profession.
okay.
Yeah, I think so. See, like I wanted to be a priest, so I was there for like I wasn't convinced or anything, and I took that very seriously. I still keep my crucifix I got from the religious profession. So for me, that was an important step in my life. If I had been in another religious order, I'll probably say the same. But yeah, I think that definitely for sure.
Okay. And do you still want to be a priest?
Right now, yeah, I don't. I have thought about it. It is very weird, because sometimes people ask me if I'm a priest or something. It's so weird. Like I remember, like a few years ago, I did it to renew my passport, and I was in Texas, and so sometimes I'm a bit laconic, and I was just like giving very short answers to the lady at the front desk, and then the lady asked me, this is in Texas. So the lady asked me, "Do you speak Spanish?" And I was like, "Yes, I speak Spanish. I'm from Mexico." And she's like, "Oh, you're so quiet. I thought you didn't understand me." And then she asked me, "Are you a priest?" I was like, "No." Like, I was like 5 years after I had left the Legion at that point. And the other day here in Kazakhstan, of all places, I was because sometimes they asked me to sing at church. So I was gonna be, I was going on my way to church, but I was wearing like this black shirt and black trousers. And the taxi driver, who is Muslim, he's like, "Oh, so you're a priest?" And I was like, no, no. No, at this moment, I don't know. I don't think so. I spoke with one of my friends who actually went back to a different congregation. He's on the path to be a priest now, and I told him that I'm spiritually tired. Like, I don't think I would like to go through all of it again, like novitiate and the candidacy, because the postulacy in most orders is like a year. In the Legion was like 3 months, which is ridiculous. In other orders is like a year, maybe 2. Then you're a novice for a year, and then you can profess. So you have a discernment of like 1 to 2 years before you even join the novitiate, where in the Legion is like 3 months. So it's a much deeper process in most congregations. So no, I don't think so. I thought of maybe becoming a deacon later on in life, but right now I'm focusing on my own stuff, and maybe later I'll revisit the question. And also I'm dating someone, so that's I don't think that you can that can be a problem, I guess.
Yeah,
it
can
be frowned
barrier.
upon.
Yeah, frowned upon is a good way to say it. Yeah. Okay, so how did because you were at a different stage of formation than us when the news came out in 2009. How did the information get disseminated to you?
Pretty much, I heard the Fred Kaiser story, and it was pretty much it. Like, I think someone came up with this idea of telling people in groups instead of like gathering everything in a big room. So we were, they told us we have a meeting with the director of the center, and it'll be team. I don't remember what team we were, like team 4 or team 3, whatever team we were. So we are there gathered, and the same thing, like there is this little homily type of speech, like, we are all men and the founder is a man. So I was like, I was thinking that they will give us the news that the Vatican was going to take control over. I don't know why I thought that, but I felt like the Vatican was going to take control over the Legionaries of Christ, because they did that with the Jesuits like back like 20 or 30 years ago. When a congregation is pretty messed up, that's when the Vatican intervenes, and they pretty much set up their own a bishop to be the superior for the whole thing for a while, and while they're investigating things here and there. So I don't know why I thought we'll be living through that type of thing, which later on it kind of happened, but I wasn't expecting anyone, like I think no one was really expecting to hear that Maciel's accusations were true. So that's how he ended. Like, he's like, it's kind of funny because he was giving the homily, and while he was speaking, a brother arrived late. So he opened the door, and we were like looking at him, and he's like, sorry, and the rector was like, should I start over again or what? Like, because he's like in the middle of telling us, breaking the news, and this guy has had no introduction at that point. So, and I was pretty upset. I was like, dude, why are you so late? Like, I just wanted to strangle him because he was about to tell us like what. So the director was like quiet for a few seconds. He's like, can you come with the next group? We already started, so don't worry. So this brother left. He's from Argentina, and then he told us that after this brother closed the door and he left, director Javier Castro back then, he said some of the accusations about Nuestro Padre are true, and then that's it. And then we went to our rooms or to study. I don't know what we were going to do after that. Like everyone, I guess, I just needed to know what accusations were true, because I don't know if you were aware in the US, I feel that some of the Regnum Christi families were very sheltered in that way, like people coming from homeschool and stuff, like they were not very aware of things. But since in Mexico, the concept of homeschooling doesn't really exist, you were always on the know. So even at the Apostolic School, when I was there in 2003, I think, there was this TV channel that made a documentary about about Marcial Maciel, and they interviewed some of the first legionaries who were abused by him.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody in Mexico kind of at least knew that he was accused of pedophilia at that point. So I needed to know what accusations were mentioned, because I think there was this book, The Life of Christ, or no, Legion, a History, something like that. And in that book, it's mentioned that he was accused of drug abuse or something. So I needed to know, because it's one thing to be accused of, I don't know, stealing money, and and quite another being accused of sexual abuse. Like there's a huge, I mean, if the guy, I don't know, if he does some form of if he stole money and he bought a cool car, like I wouldn't feel so bad. But if he, I mean, drug abuse, okay, not cool, but yeah, now sexual abuse, we're speaking about completely different thing. So after those news were given to us, I think the rector told us that if we wanted to speak with him, we could. So I asked for dialogue, and we were speaking for a while. I just cannot remember what we were talking about, like for a long time. And by the end of the dialogue, I just needed to ask, like I had it in my notes, because I have my notes, and I asked him, so what are the accusations? And he said, well, it's just enough that you know that some of them are true. So you might not need to know, because some people need to have their private lives or something like that. I don't remember what he said. I was like, he didn't want to tell me. That's the thing. He didn't want to tell me. And he was speaking when he got a phone call. So he picked up the phone, and I was just thinking, I need to know. Like, I need to know, because I would just go crazy. And I thought, I will know some way or another. So it's better if they tell me. So he hung up, and he said, like, okay, well, are you ready to go? And I said, Father, I'm sorry, but it's better for my soul to know the accusations, like what is true about Marcial Maciel. And I was very shocked by the words he used. He said, what Nuestro Padre did, and the reason we cannot hide it, is because he has a daughter. And at that moment, I just thought, okay, of course, there is no, like, if you have a DNA test, it's very easy to prove that. But why do we need to hide it? That's what I thought. Like, the fact that he said the reason we cannot hide it, I was just like, what the heck?
That's a really big tell.
Like, so unfortunately we cannot hide it, guys. So he has a daughter.
Someone found out. Oh no.
Someone ratted us
out.
And I went to my room, and I think that a lot of people must have had this experience where you are like wondering, is this like real? Like everything I have been living for the past 10 years, is this like a sham, or what the hell is going on? Like what am I here for? So I was having like this, and I tried to cool down, and at that point I felt like I saw a little light at the end of the tunnel, because one of the things that I really disliked while I was in the Legion of Christ was reading Maciel's writings. I just hated that. I hated it. Like, because sometimes I will feel bad about how much I dislike that. I was in the novitiate, and I couldn't go through the letters of, like I couldn't find anything useful. And sometimes I felt bad because like there were these American brothers who were learning Spanish and they were like, oh yeah, I already read all the 12 volumes twice. And I was like, I'm in volume 3. Like why? I'm a native speaker. Why is it that I cannot go through all of that? Like, I always hated those things. And I fought it. Like it took me like 4 years to go through the whole his because oh yeah, you were a novice, right? Like
Yeah.
they had like this 2-volume set. It took me like 4 years to go through those. I just hated those things. So I think at that point in philosophy, what helped me was that I was already reading other spirituality. I was reading. I don't know. I fell in love with the writings of Edith Stein.
Okay.
Yeah, I was reading her philosophy, and also she had some spiritual writings. There was this writing in German is Kreuzeswissenschaft, so like the science of the cross, which was is a series of writings on she's reflecting on Saint John of the Cross's ascent to the mountain. So basically, very spiritual book, but has nothing to do with religion. And I was reading that at that point. So I was in a way, I felt so happy that I didn't have to go through Maciel's trash. That's how I felt like. It was just, I don't know how people found, honestly, for me, it's hard, like how people found inspiration in those writings, but I just couldn't. And I thought from now on, I'm happy that I don't have to deal with this trash anymore. And I will just stick to what I like, which is real saints and the Bible, which wasn't our thing. We were not allowed to read the Bible at some points in our legionary life. I never got that, but yeah. So that's what helped me get by. This is the thing. The day after I met Javier Castro, the very next day, we had internet in Thornwood, but we could access like 3 web pages. So like we could access the Vatican, the the United States Bishops Conference, the National Catholic Register, and the Zenit. And that was it. Like, yeah, I think so.
That's awful.
And at one point, at one point they blocked the register too.
My God.
Like, yeah, that's true. I will tell you why in a sec. But yeah, it was because people were, I'll tell you in a sec. But very next day, I'm there on the computer, and on the Zenit, they published everything. Like they said, oh, Marcial Maciel, it was revealed in the New York Times that he had a daughter. That was the very next day. So if I hadn't heard it from Javier Castro the evening before, I would have read it there immediately, like the very next day. So I was just like, I felt so disappointed that first, these things are not told to us. They were not, they didn't tell us properly. Like that's not the way to break this type of news to anyone. You don't have to break the news, just break them and tell them the truth. Don't tell us like, oh, something it's true, and then I want to speak with the rector, and he pretty much doesn't want to tell me for like an hour until I'm able to drag it out of him. And the way he tells me is that we cannot hide this information from the public. So like we are still trying to play this game of defending Maciel basically. And that's why I feel like so disappointed. Like we are not, they are not being truthful to us at that point. Mm-hmm. That very day we had a hike. I don't remember what that was. When was it? Was that January when the news?
Yeah, it was January.
Yeah. Okay, so in philosophy, I think it's on Thursdays or Tuesdays. I don't remember. In January, because we are in exam period, we would have an extra hike on one of these days. Like we will get in the bus and go somewhere, play football or soccer. Well, not football, but soccer, frisbee, whatever. So I remember we were in one of these hikes, and the rector was calling one by one people he hadn't spoken to, because at that point he was everywhere. What Maciel had done. So I guess they were trying to, catch up with people who haven't been given the full news. So yeah, that's how we knew. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. Um, we never got the full story either, but it made sense to not tell children. I guess it made sense not to tell children.
What do you
But
mean? Like you're at a Pasol school or
yeah,
Univision?
yeah. We
Oh.
were pre-candidates. So I mean, I still disagree with what they did. I still think they should have told everyone up front, but they told us basically he did unpriestly things. That was it.
Unpriestly thing. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well.
It's an understatement. But like you said, had it been drug use, I would have been like, okay, fine, whatever. Or like he stole money, cool. I don't care. Like it's not my money. Even having a kid, I'd be like, it's not, priests aren't supposed to do that, but it doesn't hurt people. Like it's not like abusing someone. Let alone abusing his kids, which they, didn't tell us about.
Yeah. Well, at that point I was like, I guess the stages of what is it called? Stages of acceptance.
Denial,
I wasn't in denial. I was more like negotiating things. Like I was thinking, oh, okay, well, at least he's not abusing kids. He had a family. Like I was thinking of that, but it was like this voice in my head, like telling me, what if he did abuse children?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what if? And I didn't want to go through that. I was like, I don't want to think of that. But I was having this experience, like there was having this dialogue in my head, and we were playing hockey, and when I was playing hockey, two, let's say, oversized brothers fell on top of me, like because we were playing, and fell on me, and then my ankle hit my hip. So with so I ripped my muscle big time. That had happened before in Cheshire, so I have to be, every time I play a sport, I have to be extra careful because I'm prone to this type of injuries now. So I couldn't walk like for a day, and then I needed to use like crutches, and in Cheshire was worse. I needed a wheelchair first time it happened. So I'm like barely able to walk, and I thought I have to go to confession. Like I was feeling so confused at that point that my thoughts were like, I need to go to confession and speak to someone in the secrecy of confession. So I asked this priest, who I always felt he was kind of kind and nice and everything, but that was like the most brutal confession I ever had, because it was painful physically. I couldn't walk, and my muscles were just like it was excruciating physically. And then the things he said, I told him, look, I having these problems where I having these mental questions, and I don't know how to deal with it. And he was like, you shouldn't think that about Maciel. He was a great man. He has given us all good things. How are you judging him? I was feeling so bad, and I was like, why are you telling me this? Like, we just heard that he wasn't a faithful priest. Now I have to feel bad because I'm asking whether he abused kids or not. I'm not like it just from that from that moment on, from the news on, I just felt that disappointment after disappointment came about.
Mm-hmm.
And this was one of those things that I kind of realized that a lot of people, even some of the people I thought were kind and priestly, were so brainwashed that they couldn't. But at the same time, I don't blame him. He was going through the same things I was going through, like everyone, like priests. Like what can he do? He probably is thinking the same, like, oh, I'm not gonna judge, and maybe he's just, this is what happened, and the guy was a good guy, and someone also mentioned at one point King David or Solomon or someone like the Bible. So we were like, again, I think collectively we're in this process of negotiating trying to see if maybe it wasn't as bad as we thought it was. But yeah, so yeah, I think that this news came about little by little, but later on, how did I find out he abused kids? I don't remember. I don't remember how I found out. Probably I read it on the news, which is very sad, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, especially if you're in it.
It's just, yeah, like
you're
people are not telling you anything. And I remember I was like in Thornwood, and I think the Legion was beginning to, like, the general director was beginning to post some little memoranda from time to time related to the news, and they will quote some news services. So they will say like, "Oh, according to the New York Times, the accusation happened, and this is true." Like, it was kind of weird that they were quoting the media instead of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, that must have been April of that year. In Mexico, the children of Maciel, the second family, because he had two families that we know of. Mm-hmm. The sons went public. They went to a radio station, and they were interviewed there. And so we had like this like summary, according to this Mexican news site. Maciel had another family. They claimed the sons. I think they were not his biological children though, but his stepsons claimed that they were abused by him. So I was reading that, but everything was in Spanish. So there's this brother, American brother, and he asked me, what does it say? And I translated it. I said like, well, there's this news site. Apparently, there's another family, and this son say that they were abused. And this brother looked at me and he said, "You people like gossip," and he left. And I was like, "What?"
Wow, you people.
I was like, what? Yeah, it's Mexico's problem, I guess, that they like to tell the truth. I don't know. I'm sorry for being Mexican here.
Gossip.
I'm like, what the heck? He was.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, I don't blame any of these people. I mean, some of them. Like this guy was probably also going through a lot. Like, and I guess in some ways, American brothers were getting the news a little more slowly because of the language barrier.
Yeah.
And throughout everything was in Spanish. Whenever something came from the general directorate, everything was in Spanish. They never bothered translating, because at that point they assumed that everyone knows and speaks Spanish fluently, mm-hmm. which it wasn't the case. Like there were quite a few people who were not fluent enough. So yeah, I guess for them it was even more. It was harder to get through the news. And yeah, so yeah, I just thought like, yeah, it makes sense. Like if he already had a daughter, and then he already had a family, and then the children are saying they were abused. Now at that point I was like, yeah, everything, all the accusations from the 40s must have been true. Like mm-hmm. there is a pattern here, so yeah, it's very hard to deny it. Later on, I kind of did my own research, and yeah, also even drug abuse was kind of very clear, a clear thing he was doing at one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was kind of, at least for me, once the accusations came out that he was abusing his own kids, that's when it was like, oh, the Great Blessing was probably, should have been the end of the Legion. Like that really to me was like, oh, that should have, or at least been the end of Maciel. But somehow he bounced back. And
I think,
you got to wonder. No, it's okay. You just got to wonder how it happened.
I think you should invite someone who might be better versed in that, because there is the Spanish Legion, I think, has a lot of information. Yeah, and I like that that's why I wanted to be here, because I think that what you're doing, guys, it's good. Like, we can share our experiences, and at the same time we can see things happening from different angles. Someone mentioned in that website that or that page that the accusations were never cleared after the Great Blessing. Like, I think a pope died at that point. I don't know if it was a pope at that point, but he died, so they took advantage of the whole transition, and officially I think he was never reinstituted. There's a lot of fishy things happening during that time, and then I guess later on, whoever retook or his friends he bribed, like, they kind of pretended that nothing had happened at that point.
Oh, okay.
Well, even in modern, like, the whole Regnum Christi statue thing.
No.
So in 2004, the Regnum Christi statues were approved by the Vatican, apparently. But during the time of the whole Maciel scandal, little things were beginning to pop, like what Freddie Kaiser mentioned about the Psalter of My Days, which, by the way, the Legion never said he plagiarized it. The note
Really?
said, no, they never said it. Like, I was so annoyed, because I was just expecting them to use clear language. The note said something like, it was discovered that Maciel copied almost literally this other author. So I was just thinking, he plagiarized it. Why don't you say he plagiarized the thing? Like, why do you have to, like, use this flowery Baroque, well, not Baroque, but flowery language to make it sound less awful? Anyways, one of the, like, side stories of this is that someone found out that the rules that were given to the Vatican that were approved in 2004 were not exactly the same rules that Regnum Christi people were given. So the Vatican got a set of rules, but when they published it, they published the book with more rules, and the rules that were added were not. It was pretty messed up. So someone found that out, and I think it was Evariste Sada or Luis Garza, I don't remember. I think it was Evariste Sada. He sent a note saying that, well, it wasn't our fault. It was the brother in charge of, or the father in charge of the edition of the book. He was supposed to tell us which numbers were approved by the Vatican, which ones were not. I was like, oh, who's gonna believe that story? Like,
yeah, I don't.
Yeah. Like, if you wanted to remove a tree from a place, you needed to as a general director for that. I don't know if you were aware of that rule.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
really?
if you were like, yes, and if you wanted to, like, like a tree, you have to ask the general director of Rome. You have to ask Rome for permission to that. So you're telling me that if we want to move a stupid tree, we need your permission. But you didn't notice that there was a huge mistake in the process of publishing these rules that were meant for everyone to be followed. And you forgot to mention that some of those rules were not approved by the Vatican. Like,
man, just the number of things that happened where it's like clear disregard for well, I think there was just clear disregard for the Vatican and for the church. It was almost like a contempt, like, we're better, so why do we have to try to appease the overlords? I don't know. It seemed like a lot of posturing.
There are a lot of sneaky things.
Yeah.
So many. Yeah. I mean, even the spiritual director situation was pretty fishy. I spoke with a Franciscan priest later on about my experience. When I told him that we were told that our confessor and spiritual director was supposed to be our superior, his eyes went wide open. I was like, that's so against canon law. Like, you cannot do that. And he told me, even I said, no. He said that you shouldn't do that. You cannot do that. Your spiritual director cannot be your superior. I don't know how that happened. Even a confessor is recommended that he shouldn't be your superior. And the reason is very logical, because there are things that you can say in confession, and the superior can, they were supposed to send reports and stuff. So I'm pretty sure that a lot of superiors use things that were said in confession. I want to give them the credit of the doubt that maybe they were not consciously doing, but it must be hard. Like, did this brother tell me this in this spiritual direction or confession? Like, and so that's a very delicate thing to do. When the Vatican, after the Vatican had sent Maciel away, the more changes came, right? Like they got rid of the vow of charity, so-called vow of charity, which is meant that you were not allowed to speak ill of any superior. And if you heard, if you heard someone's, you were supposed to tell the superior. Which is basically a vow of secrecy, really. That's where it is. So the euphemism of charity has nothing to do with that. And also they changed the role of the spiritual directors. I don't know how the Vatican found out. They told us that we shouldn't be doing that. And it's very fishy, because the way the legionary constitutions were worded at that point, I think the reason the Vatican approved those constitutions was because the legionaries or whoever drafted them were in the general tradition of the church, but for legionaries means something completely different. So spiritual direction is not something you go on, you have with your superior, period. It's not, you don't do that. But in the Legion of Christ, that's how we understood it. So there was what we were having was always spiritual dialogue. We just call it spiritual direction. Well, sorry, not formation dialogue. Sorry, that's what it was. So, and then these changes came from the Vatican. But even then, like, sometimes I cannot believe that they were so, either someone was very stupid or someone was pretending to be stupid, because they told us, okay, guys, you must have spiritual director. All right, fine. What they did is they named the spiritual directors for the centers. And the spiritual directors were, I remember for Thornwood, I think was Kevin Meehan, I think, who was the assistant for the religious life, he was technically a superior at one point, I think. Oh no, he was in Cheshire. But I remember in Thornwood, one of the superiors who were like, or for the territory was Bayeres. What's his name? Antonio Bayeres.
Yeah.
Hello?
Sorry, we're losing you for a bit.
We're like, okay. It might be my internet. So
you had Father Anthony Bayeres, Antonio Bayeres.
Yeah.
And Father Kevin.
Yeah, so Anthony Bayeres at that point was a superior in the territory of Atlanta, and he was named a spiritual director for the territory of New York. So yes, he was not a superior in New York, but he was a superior in Atlanta. What they were doing is like, oh, he's not your direct superior, but he's superior somewhere else, but he will be your spiritual guide now. So still they were trying to control who you were supposed to have spiritual direction with, and trying to give some superiors the task of giving you spiritual direction. Then the Vatican later said, no, it cannot be a superior whatsoever. Like if your guy is a spiritual direction, he cannot be a superior anywhere, period. So, but that change came about like 4 years later. The Vatican also found out about that.
Yeah, that's something that blew my mind, that we just thought it was normal to go to our vice rector and our rector for spiritual direction.
confession.
And yeah, and
even worse.
yeah, going to confession was not a fun experience either, because you knew if you said something, like I'm pretty sure I said something in confession, and it was brought up in spiritual direction later, and I was like, wait a minute, hold on.
Oh,
Pretty sure that happened everywhere.
Yeah. And I'm like, I
maybe,
didn't tell you that. Like,
but maybe they didn't think about it, like they were just not,
like
they
you
know.
said,
Yeah.
Like you said, you have how many? You have 20, 30 people under you that you're seeing for confession and spiritual dialogue or whatever, and it's easy to get them mixed up. So I'm not saying it was intentional, but I'm pretty sure there was something I said that came up in spiritual direction later, and I was very confused by it.
Well, I have a story for, like, when I was at the Apostolic School. This is how early they try to, they will make you follow this culture. So my spiritual director was a superior of the Apostolic School, and so one day is my day, because we had like this confession day, like you'll choose a day of the week and you'll go to confession. So it was my confession day, and at the Apostolic School, I don't know if it was the same for you guys, but when we're apostolic, confession time was during the morning prayers and mass time. There was always a priest in the back of the chapel, because in the novitiate, I think it's more during evening prayer. Like nobody's really doing confession during meditation time. So I'm waiting there, and my confessor, who is also my superior, who is also my spiritual director, hadn't arrived. So I'm waiting there, like in line, and all these apostles are going through confession, but with another priest. And then mass begins. So I'm just waiting in line, and then it's my superior, the superior giving saying the mass that day. So I thought, okay, well, I will after mass, and then I'll go to confession. So I wait after mass, and there is still a line of apostolics went into for confession. So I get in the line, and this priest comes to the chapel, he kneels, he prays, and he leaves. So I thought, okay, maybe he has no time for confession. So it's my day of confession. I'll go with the other priest who is still hearing confessions. So I have my confession there. And when I get to the dining room, because I was late because of confession, I asked permission to join the community, and the priest tells, "Who is your confessor?" And I was like, "You." "And why did you go with this other priest?" And I was like, "I don't know. I'm sorry." And he said, "Please join your community." And I was like, "What just happened?" Because in theory, confession is, you should be free to choose who you go to confession with, but they were very. It wasn't a rule. You would be, let's say, reprimanded if you didn't. Well, I was reprimanded actually, but it wasn't like one of those rules that was very visible, but it was there. Like you were supposed to have confession with certain people, and if it's your superiors, even better. So I was a bit like confused that day, very confused, like why he would say this to me. I mean, I thought the whole thing of confession is that you are free to go and say your sins and whatnot, but apparently it's more important to have it with your superior than with a priest, a different priest. I don't know.
Yeah. Sounds like someone was jealous, but
I guess
somebody wanted the dirty details on you.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. What do you are you still in contact with a lot of people from the Legion? I know you said you still have some friends from your apostolic school days, but do you still keep in touch with other people?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, I do. People from the apostolic school I keep in touch with, even from the novitiate and humanities and philosophy. Yeah, I think I'm pretty much in touch with most of them. Most of them have already cut ties with the Legion.
Yeah.
or Regnum Christi whatsoever. I have seen a few around, like on Facebook from time to time, like Joseph Cunningham. I've seen him around. Like I haven't spoken to him, but yeah, I see his posts and stuff. Something that I feel that because we deal with this experience in different ways, is that I wasn't aware of how tough it was for a lot of people after they had left the Legion. Kyle Crosby?
Yes.
Yeah, I read his blog, and I felt so devastated because the whole trauma he had to go through after he left, and then when I heard Joseph Cunningham's story, I was just like, I feel when I hear these stories, I just feel really, really bad. Like this sadness of I knew these people and I didn't know what they were going through. And maybe I could have said something or done something that didn't make it any better. So yeah, at least the people I have been speaking with from Mexico, they I guess we dealt in a different way, or maybe the experience hit us in different ways, because I think I mentioned it to you. I feel that in the US, I feel that the Regnum Christi setting was a little more cult-like, even more than in Mexico. In Mexico, I feel that Regnum Christi was more like a social club almost. Because in Mexico, they were targeting like the wealthier stratas of the Mexican people, of the Mexican society. So that's why you see Regnum Christi in first world countries, and in Latin America, it's just almost reserved exclusively for, let's say, wealthier people. But there is a reason there is no Regnum Christi in, I don't know, South Africa or Uganda or Kenya. Like, it's not something that would appeal to the legionaries. Even I don't know if you know, but they were thinking about opening a house here in Kazakhstan.
Really?
Yeah, like there is a letter here. Let me see if I was going through that letter the other day. Someone published it in LegioLeaks, but yeah, basically, because for the longest time I was trying to understand why they wanted to come here. They sent a priest, and then this priest always tells the same story, that he was riding a donkey or something to get to a Catholic town, and this town didn't have a priest hadn't had a priest like for 20 years or whatever, and they were happy to see him. So he was kind of like the savior of the day. But the letter, it's a letter. It's the leaked letter was sent by, I think, Evariste Sada, I think, to Marcel Maciel. Let me see if I can find it. And in this letter, he's speaking about spiritual direction and all that. He's telling Maciel some of the things a businessman told Sada in no, not Sada. What's his name? This Mexican priest in the USA. Not Valleres, another one.
Izquierda?
No. He's Spanish. Yeah, he wears glass. He was very close to the Bush family at one point. Like he was. He officiated one of the.
I know there are like 5 listeners who know this, and they're screaming it at their monitors right now.
Probably, yeah. Well, this guy, he was having spiritual direction with this businessman, and in the report, like he was like, they were talking about pretty much about money, basically. Like, he can help us with this front. He will help us. He's helping us. He's told us that he will try to help buying Thornwood and so on. And they also mentioned briefly Kazakhstan. Like, at that point in the 90s, the post-Soviet Union countries were going through a very tough time. So that sometimes we think that after the Soviet Union fell, we like people were happy and democratic and everything, but it was awful over here. Like I've been speaking to people, of course, and it seems that it was pretty messed up. So they were trying to get back on their feet, and one of the things they had here in Kazakhstan is oil. They have a lot of oil and gas. They have a lot of elements here, like from the periodic table, so they can mine a lot of metals here. So basically, they wanted to come to Kazakhstan because there was oil here. That's what the letter says. So they're like, oh, there's a lot of oil, so maybe you can open a front there. And I was thinking, like, why? Like, I realized
the logic makes sense.
Yeah, but this is an Islamic country. Like, how are they gonna get? Yeah. I mean, this is like 75% Muslim country. Like the 25% Christians here, like 22 are Orthodox, and maybe 5% are Catholic. Yeah, maybe 1% Protestant, right? So I understand now what they were aiming for. I think they were not aiming for coming for the locals. They wanted to come for the expats.
Yeah,
that's what like I realized what they were, like their plan really was to get these wealthy expats to server in there. But I will ask one of the bishops here, like the story, like their side of the story, because I'm very curious what really happened on the other side of so yeah, they were planning on opening the front here, but yeah, because there was oil. That's what matters, the oil. Forget that these Christians here were sent to gulags and were oppressed and they have a priest. No, go for the oil.
Yeah. That's why I would do it, at least. That's what I would go there for. Go there for the wealthy people. Yeah. Well, that's my theory on why they have a house in Korea, but that's a story for another day.
Well, yeah. But we were speaking about so I think like going back to the difference of how we our experience of Regnum Christi. I feel that in Latin America, at least, it's more like a club or society. Like you have to have these contacts here and there, and you have your bank account should be substantial enough to be invited to certain Regnum Christi activities.
Fundraisers.
So, basically, Well,
real quick, was it Father Luis Garza?
No.
Sorry,
no. It wasn't Garza.
It just popped in my head.
No, it's fine. So. No,
it's bugging me.
I'm trying to look for. I'll look for that letter because I have it somewhere. But yeah. Okay. So I feel that in the U.S., because of the ways things were structured, the Emilio Torre.
Oh,
Father Emilio.
Yeah, that was the one.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
You didn't know him? You didn't met him?
No, I don't think I ever met him.
Oh, really? Yeah, he was pretty big. I met him a few times. Then he was sent to Mexico, I think. I don't know what he was doing there. But yeah, he was very close. I mean, kind of. I think he officiated the marriage of one of Jeb Bush's sons or daughters.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how, like, he was well connected over there.
Yeah.
Let me see, because I have here I found the letter. It was spiritual direction. I won't say the name of the guy he had spiritual direction with, but he's a businessman from Canada, actually. So so this is a huge problem, because you see, whatever we said in spiritual direction was immediately reported to people over there in Rome. Very scary to think about it, and even for lay people, like this guy, it's called Interior Forum. I mean, this guy's Interior Forum was completely violated. To the point that now we can read his spiritual direction details in online. So it's just like,
now it's on a podcast.
On a podcast. Yeah, I don't want to say his name, but someone published a letter. So I mean, I would suggest just to not say it, but it's there, out there.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Wow, that's nuts. I think we're winding down here. I don't have any more questions. I feel like we covered a lot of topics. Do you have anything? Do you have any stories you want to throw in, or that you didn't get to?
Well, I wanted to something that really caught my eye with Freddie Kaiser's story about. He said that David Steffi had a hunch about Maciel at one point or something, and that he asked not to.
Yeah, we were having academies. And we had spent a good amount of time memorizing quotes from the founder and putting together an academy. And then like 2 days or like a week before we did the academy, he came down. We were lined up in the preparation room, and Father David came down and he said like, hey, we're not going to do quotes from Maciel. It's what did he say? He said it was like unfortunate because of the current circumstances. It wouldn't be a good look to put that out in front of the families, because our families were coming up and that's what we were doing the academies for. So he said, we're just going to do St. Paul instead. And that was probably 2007, 2006. So I don't know if he actually had a hunch about Maciel.
I have the hunch that he knew.
Yeah, I mean, he could have known. He could have had some kind of insider information. I think it was also something where, because of how the Vatican had handled the news at that point, in 2005. I think that was I think that really influenced his decision. It was a smart move in any case, and I think it's interesting that he did that. But
when I was with Father Julio Marti, everything was Father Maciel, everything, all the academies, everything like revolved about Maciel. So there was this year I was already humanities, but I'm trying to remember which day exactly, the year, because I don't know if it was 2007 or 2008. The year of St. Paul was 2008, I think.
It might have been 2008 then when we did that. Yeah.
But I don't know if the year started in 2008, because sometimes like these Jubilee years start like earlier, like they start like in December, but they go all the way to January of the year after, like it's almost like a year and 2 months. Anyways, like I felt something was weird, because always Marti was like, he made us memorize a quote every day from the letters, and we were supposed to like check that we like whenever we learn the quote, we'll like put a check mark on the board or whatnot. He was very big about that. But there was this year also, like I thought it was so weird, because I thought, of course, it's gonna be on Maciel. I was just thinking like everything was gonna be about Marcel Maciel, the quotes and everything. But no, nothing. Everything was about St. Paul, I think. That's why I think it was the year of St. Paul, 2008. Yeah, I think it was 2008 then. The beginning of 2008, probably. And I was like, this is so weird. Like Marti's huge about having Mr. Padre and so on. So I thought it was odd. Like something was completely odd at that point. Later on, after the news stuff, like everything was leaked and leaked or whatever. Yeah. So whatever your experience was, if someone told you, or you have to find out on your own or whatever. It had been already like a few months, and that day, for some reason, Julio Marti sat at our table in we're in philosophy. Sorry, this is 2010, 2009 probably. I think it was 2010. He sat at our table. Which, I mean, like usually priests, like the superiors, but
Sorry, cut out for a second.
Sorry, I think I lost you. But yeah. So basically, that day, Marty sat with us, with the philosophers, and we're just speaking about things. And I don't know why, like it came about like we were talking like about our experience and the Legion and the news, and he said, well, I just want to tell you that I knew before everyone else did. And I warned you in a homily in last year when I visited Cheshire, that there will be very hard times for legionaries coming around. And the same brother who arrived late to the meeting we had with the rector was at that table, and he remembered the homily. I was like, well, how do you have, like, this guy has very good memory, I guess. Because he said, oh yeah, I remember that homily, and you told us this and that. And I was like, I have no memory of that homily whatsoever. So he told us that he knew about it before. He said it very clearly. I knew beforehand, and I knew the news. So I don't know why he mentioned that. Maybe he was just trying to tell us that we were having we're gonna go through another new blessing or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was quite surprised to learn that some people you wouldn't expect knew. I think they told him because they wanted to know how to approach the situation in the US, probably, with the novices, because he had been there for a while. So maybe they asked for his advice, and I'm guessing that some people were letting in the secret before everyone else, probably just to work out a strategy. That's what I want to think. What thing I happened, and so that's why I think that maybe he knew already at that point. So David Steffi must have known about everything. Of course, some priests knew, like, because it was very clear. Those who visited Maciel in Florida, of course, they must have known. A few of them must have known what was going on.
That was one of them was Father Peter Hopkins, and my mom was kind of close with him. So after Maciel had died, we saw him, or she saw him in Thornwood or something, and she asked, like, what was it like with Father Maciel, at the end, and he just looked at her and he did a little key gesture to his mouth, saying like his lips were sealed, and she thought that was the weirdest thing to, like, this was before the news came out, so he didn't want to say anything, and my mom was like, why would he do that? I don't get it. And then the news came out later, a few months later, maybe even a year later at that point. And she was like, that's why he wouldn't tell me anything.
Yeah, that could have messed up, the whole thing.
Yeah.
I think also he was the one who gave him the ice cream, that ultimately kind of like kill him, was the ice cream. You know the story? Or
no, I mean, I know people would slip him ice cream.
Yeah, like Maciel wanted ice cream, and the way first Bannon told us that he had been a nurse, but then I think Hopkins told us himself, or I don't know who. Like, we heard the story from different people, and someone said that it was Hopkins who gave Maciel ice cream, and that's when he had like some like problems with the stomach at that point, and then he passed away. So maybe that's why he didn't want to tell your mom, I guess. If he was the one who gave him the ice cream in the end,
he killed Maciel.
I don't want to phrase it like that, but this is allegedly, in case.
Yeah.
This is what I heard. If someone wants to confirm the story, that's please, is alleged part of the story. Also, like, have you seen those pictures of the day he died and everything?
No, I didn't know there were pictures.
There are pictures. Oh, it looks so frightening. it looks so scary. Like oh no. And the wife and the daughter are there, of course. Father Alvaro is there. Kevin Meehan is there. What's his name? Joseph. The one.
Peter
Hopkins. Peter Hopkins. Yeah. Peter Hopkins is there. So yeah, it's a bit weird and scary. Yeah, they were published. I mean, someone leaked them like in 2011, I think.
Wow, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
a lot of leaked information in that time. Even now, like they're beginning to leak a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, and the more we share our experiences, the more we get to know. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so I think that's one of the stories like I wanted to share. Like some people did know about it probably, and I don't know if what I would have done in that situation, to be honest. I consider myself lucky that I left at the wrong moment. They never let me have any position of authority, and I'm very glad they never did. So, and I was in my internship in Mexico, but I was already struggling, and after they lied to me a few times personally, like about certain things. One of the things I was really having a hard time with is that they sent me to Mexico to work as a vocational recruiter. So, yeah, I was thinking like at that point, I was thinking like the Legion shouldn't be recruiting anyone at all. Like we should close our doors and figure out what the hell is going on, and then maybe in the future we can restart the program. But they asked me to recruit children, and I was like, no, I just like psychologically I couldn't do any of that, you know. I wrote a letter to Corcuera asking him if he could send me back to the US, because I also was having a bit of a reverse culture shock, or even a culture shock, because I live most of the time in northern Mexico, so going back to Mexico City was a bit hard for me, yeah, culturally speaking, and also like what I was supposed to be doing. And Alvaro Corcuera said, yes, of course, we'll make sure that you go back to the US and so on. And I told him, yeah, I want to go back and maybe might join a diocese there. So I just want that assurance that you'll give me a hand in case I discern that will be my path to follow. And he told me personally, yes, don't worry, we will find out the way and so on. And later on, he sent me a letter saying that, oh, unfortunately, we cannot do that because we need to ask the apostolic vicar for that change. So unfortunately, you have to stay in Mexico. And I was like, this is, I was so upset because a friend of mine was in Mexico. He requested a change and he was given that change in Mexico, inside the country, but he requested it because he was sent to work in the city he's from. And he said, he told me, I feel very uncomfortable here. Like all my friends are here and I might end up leaving. So he has to go somewhere else, and they let him go somewhere else. He left anyways, but so I was pretty upset. Like, okay, why this guy? You don't need permission from the apostolic vicar to do that, but for me, you do. Like, what's the game? And then they sent me to work in the school, but I didn't go. I was very tired at that point, and I knew I know they like to play mental games, so I have my own mental strategy, and I didn't want to be blamed for abandoning the Legion or whatnot. So in my mind, I was just creating this mental challenge, like if you don't deliver, it's on you guys. I didn't fail you, you failed me. So once they told me I was going to stay in Mexico and go to another city to work in a school, I was like, that's it. I'm going home. You're not delivering. You are not hearing me. You don't understand what I'm going through. So, and that's I cannot trust you anymore. Sorry, this is enough.
Yeah.
So that was like the last drop. Yeah.
Oh wow. Well.
Yeah.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing you're out.
Yeah. Well, this is where I feel a bit. When I left. My mother went to pick me up at the airport, and I flew to a different city, and then I had to take a bus. So we were in the bus, and I just felt that this huge yoke was taken away from my shoulders. Like there's this weight on me, and I felt that someone had removed that weight, and I felt so light. Even physically, I felt so light that day. Like the nightmare was over, and for me, it was so liberating. I guess, and for me, it's hard to understand. Not, yeah, I guess it's hard to understand how so many people had a very tough time after they have left, because my experience was different. But it's not that I am better or that they should have had this experience. It's more that I am shocked at how much damage these people have done to others, that they have to go through some struggles. And I'm pretty sure if I wanted to be a priest, I was the one who wanted to join the apostolic school. If I wasn't the one who had this wish or desire, I would be in the same situation, because a lot of people were pretty much convinced or pushed to join the Legion when they were clearly not meant for that, or the priesthood, So when someone is pushing you to do something that is not according to your psyche or what you want to do in life, of course, it's going to be a tremendous weight on your shoulders that you have to carry for the rest of your life. Yeah, of course, I have these like sometimes weird nightmares, like Joseph Cunningham was mentioning. I don't know, you have those, like, but for me it's a bit weird, because sometimes I dream that I'm in Thornwood and I've seen a legionary, and they ask me like, do you want to continue? And I was like, yeah, but I give like this, like, yeah, like I don't really want to, and even my girlfriend is in my dreams for some reason, so I'm a legionary with a girlfriend. So
well,
like
you're not
I
the
just
only one,
went
yeah.
probably. What do you mean, the only legionary with a girlfriend, or the only
Oh
one
yeah,
with
yeah.
dreams?
No, I meant like Maciel, legionary with a girlfriend.
Okay. Yeah, probably. Well, yeah, there are more revelations about other legions.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
people, that people who had like children and stuff like that, and it's so weird. Like every year something new happens, and something is revealed.
Yeah.
And whew, yeah, and I think you might think that it ends with the higher ups, but sadly, recently I heard of a guy who I was at the apostolic school with, not my generation, but apparently he was, found with some young man, so there is. I thought it was just like, oh, the legionary, like the Maciel people and maybe older priests, but even people from my generation, are doing things that they shouldn't. I don't think, because I was speaking with one of the people who are from the same city, who is from the same city, and he told me that it doesn't seem that it was an abuse itself, as it seems it wasn't an abuse, but still, like, if you are a religious person, you shouldn't be, dating youngsters, like, so, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's messy.
Still messy, yeah.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Well, shoot. On that note, this has been Cucks for Christ.